So-Called is sponsored by loveboiseparks.org, which donates profits to support, promote, and preserve open spaces in Boise, Idaho. Use promo code SOCALLED for 10% off all your purchases at loveboiseparks.org.
Fear is a liar. It's here to cause more fear. It's, you can overcome this by just having this awareness and knowledge eliminates fear.
This is Mark Wojcik, and I'm wondering, how's your so-called career? Welcome to So-Called, the podcast that explores the why and how of work. On today's episode, we meet Gary Buckmann, coach, author, and inspirational speaker. When we met, I asked Gary about his career.
I was a gymnastics coach, specifically women's gymnastics coach, for 45 years. Had my own company, a private gymnastics school that had 1,300 students and 30 employees. And I taught for 45 years. And now I am in the process of switching careers and taking on, a new form of coaching, and by speaking and writing and being an inspirational speaker.
When Gary was a sophomore in high school, he began coaching gymnastics at his mentor's private club, launching a 45-year coaching career. But first, there was college.
My coach, grabbed me by the shirt and says, when you're done with college, come home and there's a job waiting for you. When I got done with college, I had a degree in, kinesiology and physiology of exercise, which is a fancy name for PE. So I had a PE major, and I graduated and I went back home and worked at, with my mentor and coach in high school at his private club. And eventually, he moved on to the college ranks, and I took over the business and club and became the owner and of the school. My kids had so much success in competition that I was asked to be on the USA coaching staff, and I got to travel around the world with the USA team. And so it was doing what I loved, and not thinking of, anything else, just keeping the focus on that and staying, true to myself with the basics. And the program took off so well that I got noticed, by USA Gymnastics, and then got asked to be on the coaching staff. And that was very exciting for me, and something that I didn't expect. So, for your listeners, and, they can do the same thing if they can figure out something that, they're passionate about and that they love to do, it pays off in the end for sure. And things happen that you can't even imagine.
Gary was a competitive gymnast in college, an experience that shaped both his approach to coaching and to life.
I actually had a very successful competitive career, and I also one of the reasons that I had so much success in my coaching career was that in college, I had a catastrophic injury.
Oh, wow.
I broke my neck and was paralyzed, and actually was told that by all the experts that I was going to be paralyzed for the rest of my life. And I decided that was not the plan for me, and ended up, using all of my athletic, all of my gymnastics training to visualize things and heal myself. And what I did from that was that I wanted to make sure the reason that I got injured was my coach skipped steps with me. And so I wasn't aware of this, all the aspects of the skill that I was doing. From that, I took that incentive, I came back and recovered. It took me 3 years, and I actually competed again. And from that point on, I decided to, when I got into the coaching, field after college, that I was never, ever going to let that happen to one of my students. I was going to develop a program that developed total and complete, spatial awareness, so that my students knew exactly what they were doing at all times. First and utmost for safety, and secondly for consistency and, to have success.
Teaching the basics became a fundamental theme in Gary's coaching.
you always hear this thing, we need to get back to basics.
Yeah.
But people don't understand what that entails. As always, students will understand a concept mentally way before they get it physically. And until they get it all connected, they really don't have the skill all the way. And so I've took a deep responsibility, inside the gym to make sure that they knew as much or more about the sport and every skill that they were doing than I did, so that they could make adjustments, midair. If they knew exactly what was happening at all times. So when they initiated a skill, they either said, "Oh, I set it up perfectly, I'm going to nail it," or they said, "Oh, I short set, I did something wrong, I have to compensate." And that way they would still complete the skill, and at the same time, they were first and upmost, they were safe, like I said, and secondly, they landed the skill and were consistently in their performance, so they had success. So I went back to basics, and I was very honest with them. I told them up front. I said, basics are boring, a pain in the butt, and no fun, but so necessary. And like anything in life, and anything that you take on, I mean, you can only go so far, in anything that you're trying to accomplish, and then you'll peak out, you'll plateau, you'll hit a plateau, and you can't go on. And what happens at that point is you're going to have to go back down and pick up the basics that you missed to be able to get past that plateau. And what happens at that point is a lot of people don't want to do it then. It's they've already had this success, and they don't want to go back and do that kind of work. So it's easier to start at the beginning. I always said we need to slow down to speed up. If we can slow down at the beginning and get it all, then you're going to progress so much quicker and faster.
Gary says that competitive successes, while nice, were not the most rewarding part of coaching.
I had all of these so-called accolades, like I was on the USA coaching staff. I had national champions. I had state champions, all these different things. I spoke all over the world at clinics, and the greatest compliment I ever got was in a grocery store. It was one of my, beginning level competitors' mother, stopped me in the store and said, "Gary, let me tell you about Tori, her daughter." And she was at UCLA. And she said, she's in her junior year. She's the president of her sorority. She's got a double major. She's loving life. And it's all because of everything you taught her in gymnastics. And I stopped, kind of my mouth dropped, and I stopped and I said, I don't remember that on my curriculum. I don't remember teaching that stuff. But she said, yeah, she says, all the things that you taught her, like you taught her time management and goal setting and conflict resolution and just all kinds of different things. And I thought, wow, there's the real benefit. It's like I realized at that point that gymnastics was kind of the byproduct of what I was teaching. I was teaching these kids all of these life skills. So it's like gymnastics for life. And that was like a big, boom, eye opener for me, and how important and how integrated all that was, and that how they just, utilized it. And yeah, the physical part seemed like the smallest part of it. And and the other aspect of it that I liked about it too was learning to use your mind in the right way, and all of the psychological things that go along with sports, because of the pressure. The main thing that I've tried to get across to my athletes is to take all of your nervous energy and utilize it to your advantage. Nervous energy is just like excitement energy. So why let it work against you? Let it work for you. Harness that energy and utilize it. And that's another thing that you can do in life when you run into obstacles and challenges, and things like that, because people just, they let their negative thoughts, defeat them before they even start. And so if they can learn to use their mind in the positive way, we have a 50-50 choice. Either you can go with the negative or go with the positive. So let's go with the positive.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you say that, I'm wondering, is that at least part of the approach that you took with your injury?
That's exactly what I did. Like I think, one of the things that because I go out and speak about it now, main thing that happened when, like I was in the hospital for the first time for 8 weeks, flat on my back and traction. And about 4 weeks in, that's when the doctor came in and said, you're not responding to any of the treatments. So you might as well get used to being paralyzed for the rest of your life. And at that moment, um, I just said, no. I made a decision. I said, no, that's not the plan, doc. I had no idea how I was going to, heal myself or fix it or whatever else. But I think making that decision started the healing process instantly right then. I mean, nothing changed. I was still, in a lot of pain and paralyzed. But, you make a decision. You decide, no, this is what I'm going to do. And then you start utilizing whatever you have to move towards that goal. And so, that's exactly what I did. And another thing that is really crucial, I think, is that, we never do anything alone. We never do anything by ourselves. It takes people, and support around you. So, getting the good support, having a positive attitude, and just you hear about mind over matter. Well, it works.
Gary is taking a new direction in coaching as an author and inspirational speaker.
I'm in the process of writing a book, and I think the title is going to be Broken to Brilliant.
Nice.
And yes, and it's all about my journey, and so I'm doing that, and then I'm starting to do inspirational speaking, sharing my story and letting people out there know that anything is possible, and that you don't have to take things at face value. You can find different ways to do things by being creative, and that goes for anything that you want to accomplish in life. So I just kept using my creativity to figure out, well, how can I heal this, how can I fix that, how can I do this, or how can I get where I want to go. So I'm just trying to spread the news now that there is a choice. You can decide that hey, I can do this. I had I like how I said, how the mind works. It's either going to work for you or it's going to work against you. And, a little short story about me before I broke my neck, my girlfriend and a bunch of friends wanted to take me snow skiing my freshman year when I was 19. And long story short was, I didn't learn how to ski. So it was just a disaster. And so then I made up a story, to save face. Your ego comes in, right? So I made up a story saying, well, I don't like snow skiing because I don't like to be cold. I'm a water skier. I love the water skiing, be in the warm weather. And I told myself that story for 23 years until I was 42. A friend of mine said he was going to take me skiing. And I said, no, you don't understand. He goes, no, you don't understand. And so he took me up skiing, and I learned how to ski. And that just opened up my whole life to, like, what else have I missed out on because I'm worried or fearful? I have these false fears that I made up to keep myself safe. And so I like to let people know about that too. Like it's kind of like in gymnastics, where I would tell the girls, I would say, fear is a liar. It's here to cause more fear. It's, you can overcome this by just, having these basic, having this awareness, and knowledge eliminates fear. So I just want to, spread the knowledge that, anything is possible, and you can do it in so many different ways.
This your speaking career and writing a book. Did you have any fear going into those new areas from something that you've been doing for so long in coaching?
Oh, great question, Mark. Great question. Yes, I had totally, because here's, when I was younger, I didn't learn phonics. So I skipped basics. See, I didn't learn phonics. And so I couldn't spell or read very well. And I couldn't pronounce new words. So it was really hard for me. And so I grew up thinking I was a terrible writer. And then I'm going to write a book. Oh, brother, I don't think so. I was scared to death, and I started and I stopped. I started and I stopped. I started, I stopped. And so now, here I am, the kid that can't spell and is a terrible writer is writing a book. So yes, I did. I was deathly afraid, and here I am. And now the book's coming out hopefully this year in a few months, and then I'm going to back it up with the speaking. So Yeah. And then I was always worried about, going out and speaking out. Like I had been speaking publicly, on a technical, format in gymnastics. I was very comfortable in that format, but going out and talking about, my story and trying to help people in an area that is not supposedly my expertise. Yeah, I was a little bit leery about that also. You always hear about public speaking as, a very big fear in people's lives.
For information about Gary's book release date and speaking engagements, please see his website, garybuckmann.com. Check the show notes at socalledpodcast.com for the link to Gary's website and other related content from this episode. What advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell my younger self that to enjoy the process a little bit more. I was a little intense and a little bit, in my younger years, a little bit too much ego-based, coming from what is in it for me. And it's not so much that, it's more of, how can I be of service? You know what I mean? And I was of service, but I wasn't coming from service, if that makes sense. And so I would give my younger, self advice to say, make sure that when you're doing anything that you love to do, that, you're being of service, coming from being of service. And that would just enhance the whole thing. And then to just enjoy the ride, because, like along the way, over 45 years, I had a lot of setbacks. I think that I handled a lot of the adversity pretty well, but at the same time, being human, some of that fear snuck in there, and then, you get all, a little tense. So I would just say, enjoy it a little bit more and be of service.
So-Called is sponsored by loveboiseparks.org, which donates profits to support, promote, and preserve open spaces in Boise, Idaho. Use promo code SOCALLED for 10% off all your purchases at loveboiseparks.org. Our theme and transition music was composed by Roberto Cavaco. All other stylings are the sound of my voice. If you enjoyed today's episode, please let us know. Subscribe and leave us a review. So-Called is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and wherever you get your podcasts.